can't find the athletic registration form. They thought it was on the website. If we could either attach it to the website, or he could send out an email to all parents with the form attached.
Are we ready? Okay, here we go. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming out and joining us tonight. I'd like to officially open our school committee meeting for March the 13th, 2019. First order of business is to approve minutes from our last meeting, which I unfortunately was not in attendance at. So could I have a motion for those minutes, please?
Motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
Motion's been made and seconded. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Chairperson's report. There's been a lot that's been going on. We opened our meeting tonight with an executive session on the topic of negotiations under Mass Chapter Law, or General Law, Chapter 30. And I just wanted to notify the community that about the appeals process on the citations that the school has received, but also the town has received in regards to the Green Meadows School. I don't have a lot to say as far as the appeals process itself. We know that there is likely to be a hearing coming up, most likely at the beginning of April. But we can report on the fact that the corrective action report that details all of the action steps that were identified by the DLS is going in on Friday. So we can inform the community that the things that DLS is asking us to target are being addressed, reported on, and that corrective action report is going in, on Friday. Second order of business that I'd like to update you on is the question of air purifiers at the Green Meadows School. There was a series of emails that were going around today, and Michelle, I'm looking to you in case I misspeak, but at this point in time, we have had contact with the Best Living Systems company, who manufacture the 2 versions of air purifiers that were referred to in the most recent air quality report. And those are, one is the number 22 model and one is the number 12 model, I believe it was. But you've been in contact with an agent there. We have reached an agreement. They will accept a purchase order. We're waiting to hear back from them on pricing. So I have positive news to report that the purifiers will be on order as soon as we hear back from the person. We were hoping that would be by the close of business today, and we will get that process going. Is there anything that you wanted to clarify on, Michelle?
So it's 2 different types of air purifiers, one for the smaller rooms and the smaller offices, and then another one for the larger rooms. We also have requested, because in that report there weren't any recommendations for the gymnasium or the library-sized rooms, so that's what he was continuing to work on, was what size purifier would be acceptable for both those rooms. And as soon as he gets me back that information, we've already agreed that they will accept the purchase order, and as soon as I send the purchase order, the order will be in. So like Justin had said, we were hoping that it would be by the time we came to this meeting today. But I haven't heard back from him just yet, but it was a great conversation. They're able to supply us with the amount that we need. And so all of those will be ordered.
Perfect. Sorry to put you on the spot,
No,
but I know that you were the
perfect.
point person on that.
That's fine.
Next, the meeting that I missed last time, there was a significant concern about the night locks that were suddenly removed from the classrooms, and I did want to update the community a little bit on that. We as a school department have reached out to the building inspector, Mr. Assman here in town, regarding the possibility of a waiver under building code, with the hopes that if we receive a waiver, we can quickly reinstall those systems in all of our classrooms. That's in process. That's all I can tell you right now. We're still waiting to hear back. Parallel to that, if there does not come through with a waiver, what we're hoping is that our safety committee is working with our fire chief and our police department to identify other systems that we can use that would meet building codes and that could satisfy the needs for our teachers and our students in those classrooms. Because although I wasn't here, I understand that it came as quite a shock, and I was also quite surprised by it. Being a classroom teacher, that would be very disconcerting for me as well. So we're working as quickly as we can to remedy that situation and proceeding in two different directions, either with a waiver and reinstalling the systems that we already have. We stored them, preserved them so that we can reinstall them if possible. And if that doesn't occur, then we are working with the proper groups to identify an appropriate system and get those installed as quickly as possible. Finally, I want to thank Mauro for this. But I've been copied on a series of emails between us and our Massachusetts Association of School Committee field rep. We are seeking some specialized training and feedback regarding the process of superintendent evaluation. So it's looking like we will be participating in a approximately 2 to 3 hour training on the topic of superintendent evaluation. Provided free of charge as part of our membership in the MASC. School committee members, as soon as I have time tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, our field rep did share with me some available dates for early afternoon/evening meetings. First couple of dates are April 3rd, and then there's some following April vacation week also. So those are going to be coming into your email, and if you can let me know as quick as you can so we can get a training on the books, that would be greatly appreciated. I think that's what I have for my chairperson's report. Ms. Gaudet, you're filling in for Dr. Girardi tonight, so what do you have for our superintendent's update?
So just two pieces. One, I'd like to encourage everyone to attend the Fine Arts Night
Jenna,
tomorrow.
could you just use the microphone?
Sure.
Sorry. I meant to say that for Michelle, too.
I would like to encourage everyone to attend the Fine Arts Night tomorrow night. Our Fowler Unified Arts team has worked together to create a tremendous display and demonstration of student work. This will be similar to Fine Arts Nights where we've had previously that have included the art department, music, and media studies or library department here. This year, differently, they have incorporated all of the unified arts, and so I'm very excited to see how they've incorporated all of those teams into that, and I thank our teachers for their work in demonstrating the incredible work of our students. So I will be out for that, and I encourage everyone to come out tomorrow night as well. Over in the April meetings, we will be updating, I will be providing an update to the school committee on our strategic plan, specifically related to inclusive practices and superior academic experiences. And I did just want to update the committee that yesterday I was able to participate. I'm part of the Greater Boston Regional Blueprint Planning Group, which is an element of the Workforce Skills Cabinet. And I've been a part of this group for 2 years now. And just to give you a sense of what the group does, it was tasked by executive order with creating and implementing a strategy to ensure that individuals can develop and continuously improve their skills and knowledge to meet the varying hiring needs of employers across the Commonwealth. This unifies the efforts of workforce, secretaries of labor, secretaries of commerce, and secretaries of education to ensure that all of the efforts and resources of the Commonwealth are being targeted towards specific skill needs that our employers have. And so yesterday at our regional meeting, we had identified in previous meetings healthcare and information technology as our two areas, industries of interest and our focal points for this region. And I was asked yesterday to participate in developing strategies to increase access to certificate and associate degree pathways for students in those areas as early as possible. So I'm excited that Maynard has a seat at that table. And this fits in well with our pathways option and our early college planning that we've been doing. So I expect to have a more formal update for the committee in April on the early college and academic pathway component, but did just want to provide that quick update. Sure, sorry. I was participating in a cabinet meeting yesterday that essentially allows Maynard to participate or to develop. We're at the table developing strategies, increasing access to certificate and associate degree pathways for our students in healthcare and information technology. So I'll provide a more formal update in April. That's all I have.
Thank you. I was just reminded that I was remiss in mentioning one thing during my chairperson's report. If you look at the printed agenda that some of you have in your hands, agenda item number 8 is a budget update for this evening, and I was notified by the members of our budget subcommittee that the information that they were hoping to update us on this evening did not come through in time from the parties it was requested from, hence we are tabling it for 2 weeks.
Just more specifically, when we, Thank you, Bethlyn. More specifically, when we get to this time of year and we have to start talking about budget cuts, and this is just the operating budget, so this has nothing to do with capital budgets and capital problems, but the operating budget, for those of you who haven't been with us in the springtime in years past, is when we have to start figuring out how to do more with less. And so unfortunately, that sometimes means positions change or are cut, and it's really critical. In our opinion, we've heard very good advice over the years for those of us not in education, that it's very key that we speak with staff and don't just drop things on them and walk out the room because everyone's busy. So what I do know is that everyone is very busy. And so if people are starting to make recommendations to us from the administration level and the building level about where we might be able to make some changes, and that's for all of us to talk about as we go over the next couple of months, we just want to make sure that we have the time to speak with our staff. So that's something that we all take very seriously. It was clear that everyone's trying to make our deadlines, but it's very busy. There's a lot of work obviously going on. So it wasn't ready for tonight. We lose nothing waiting 2 weeks to get a more detailed list, to make sure everyone is involved in the decision-making process, to create a list. It doesn't put us behind. We'll still be at Finance Committee on March 25th. So we're basically, everything's on time in the budget process, but we just want to make sure that we're not rushing and not doing things the right way. So I'm much more hopeful that we'll have more information on the 28th. And we still won't necessarily need to make decisions that night, but we can start the process.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Student representative report. Unfortunately, due to the reschedule from Thursday night to Wednesday night because of the event in this building tomorrow evening, our student representatives had conflicts. So at about 5:30, Patrick O'Neill, who's one of our student reps, sent me an email and asked me to read the following things. And I'm sorry in advance, it kind of reads like a stream of consciousness email, so I'm going to do the best I can to add some nuance to it. But here we go. So winter sports have ended, and spring sports have an official start date of Tuesday, March the 19th. So I'm really excited. I like the changing of the seasons. I'm a spring sport athlete in my earlier years. I like baseball, I like lacrosse. It signals to me that warmer weather is coming and we can be done with all of this stuff. Although it's been a relatively light winter, so fingers crossed. A Midsummer Night's Dream under the direction of Mr. Elias Kondakes, will open this Friday at 7 p.m. A matinee and another night show will occur the following day. March 15th, there are 2 shows at 2 and at 7. And for members of the community that have never had the opportunity to go check out one of the MHS performances, it's outstanding. Our student actors and our tech crew and the directors and everyone who's involved, from costuming to everything else, do an exceptional job. My kids love it. It's a highlight of our year. So I recommend to everyone, please go out and support our high school students and adults and faculty that are all involved in it. MHS students have submitted course selections for the 2019-2020 school year. Apparently, the Tyler SIS course selection failed, so a paper system was used for all students. That sounds like a nightmare. Sorry, I'll try not to editorialize too much. Public school teacher. The Jazz Cafe is coming up. That is on the evening of the 29th in the MHS cafeteria at 7 p.m. And it will feature the MHS Jazz Band and the FMS, the Fowler Middle School Jazz Band. Food and drink are available for sale. Personally, my family is buying a table. Again, another highlight on our calendar in the springtime. I hope to see a lot of you there. Let's see, what else did Patrick have to say? MHS will participate in March Madness activities at a pep rally on March 22nd. Activities include wheelbarrow races and suitcase races. Similar to Spirit Week, grades will compete against each other to earn points and declare an eventual grade champion. Excuse me. And then on March 28th, in celebration of foreign language classes, MHS foreign language classes will host an international dinner featuring dishes from all over the world. The location is still TBD, and tickets will go on sale soon. And that's all Patrick or AJ had for us for the student representative report tonight. So I'm going to move on, and next is agenda item number 5. Policy number 534, animals in schools, the second reading.
So as requested by School Committee Assistant Chair Capello, Dr. Girardi reached out to the town insurer, and they recommended adding the language on the second page under number 7 as follows. The companies or owners providing the service or therapy animals must have a liability insurance coverage with limits of a minimum of $1 million. With this amendment, we are asking the school committee to vote to approve policy 534, animals in schools, on this night of the second reading.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to approve the animals in schools second reading. Do I have a second? Discussion.
I'll just say that I think it should be like 5 million, but I'm not going to hold us up. So I will vote against it, but just for that one purpose. I still think it's a great program. I'm really excited. I just have a liability concern, but
Okay.
I don't want to hold up the program. I know people are waiting and have put a lot of work into it. And I have full faith in everyone who's done
Okay.
that.
So it's my understanding that between the first draft and the second draft, the liability language was the only substantial change that was made, correct? Okay. Any further discussion or questions?
I guess I would just say that when in prior emails that we saw, when we were looking at this in our subcommittee, they go into all sorts of schools, and there's been no other school that had asked for as high a level as was originally being considered and the way it was being. So they do this all the time. So it seems very standard I can understand your concern, but just to be clear about why our rationale is that this is okay is because they do this all the time, and I forget, like a ton of schools. Like it's all over.
Yeah, no, like I said, I have faith because you guys worked on it in a much more detailed level.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just wanted to explain, since I would vote no, why I was voting, because I don't
Yeah.
want people to think that I don't support dogs in schools. That's amazing. Our niece has a therapy dog for her issues. Like, it's amazing. So I'm just explaining, like, my only hesitation.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
on the higher level, I can appreciate that concern if you haven't been involved in those details. But, so, yeah, we can disagree, and that's okay.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further? In that case, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 3-1. Thank you very much. Moving on, agenda item number 6, policy number 529, meal charge policy, first reading.
The school committee policy subcommittee was made aware of this draft of the meal charge policy. It does require a meal charge policy, and this is very close to the FASC recommended policy. This is representative of the practices that are currently provided by our food service vendor, and tonight will be the first reading of policy 529, meal charge policy.
Okay, so on a first reading, we've all had the opportunity to look through it. I felt that it's pretty standard. It aligns also with a policy in the district that I teach in, so it's something that I'm a little more familiar with. We don't really need to do anything other than the first read, but this is our opportunity to provide any substantial feedback, suggestions, or edits. Or that being said, if you revisit it sometime over the next few days, recommend emailing Colleen, because she will help us edit it and also copy me just so that I'm in the loop. But unless there's any further discussion, there's really no further action that we need to take on a first reading. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. I would like to give the floor, well, let's first introduce the agenda item. School Committee Liaison to CPAC.
In the collaborative meetings with the CPAC has expressed an interest in having a school committee liaison, and both Bethlehem and Mara have expressed an interest in serving in that capacity, and would like to speak on this item.
Do you want to speak?
Sure. So Bethlyn and I have had a few meetings. We originally met with CPAC along with the administration just kind of figure out what the liaison positions would entail. And then once we kind of figured out that it would be good to start with the two of us meeting with two of the board members of CPAC, and then kind of work from there and figure out what our roles are. So it's still kind of a work in progress of exactly what we're doing, but I think you know, it's been good already, just with kind of bringing, so that we have an idea of what some of the issues are from the administration side and from the CPAC side. So, and then trying to figure out, you know, how to bring the two sides together. So, did you want to say anything?
Is it a desire for the two of you to share the liaison responsibility? Maybe alternate meetings, maybe attend at the same time? Like, what's your vision for the role?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just ours, it was kind of just talked about as a group collaboratively, and we do have one of the board members, Jennifer O'Leary, was able to be here, so if there is anything you want to add, Jennifer, please feel free to. I always call you Jennifer because of you go by Jen, right? Yeah. I don't know, I have a friend that distinctly goes by Jennifer, so that gets stuck in my head from your emails name. So we, in the course of the conversation, the discussions thus far, and the process thus far, one, we just thought having two of us would allow for some tag teaming for if there were things and meetings and things that we wanted to be sure that we had covered. So that was part of it. Then we between CPAC and ourselves, it did not seem like we felt at this time that we needed to be at their board meetings.
Okay.
So that was not at this time something that we were talking about, but more just having, at this point, we were talking about monthly, maybe a little more often. Yeah, you're nodding, okay, good. Sit down and just talking through what's going on and just having a touch point and a check-in. And then bringing things back as it makes sense to this committee and talking through what are other things, like we talked in our meeting about setting policy so that CPAC was presenting twice a year to the school committee, which was happening in the past. And in the course of looking into this and seeing how other districts do this, it did come up that some districts, they do have a policy around this, and we also happen to be on policy subcommittee together, so we could also create that. So it was really just kind of a little bit exploratory all around. Anything else that you'd want to say, Jen?
No, you covered it.
Okay, very good. So I think that's really it, and then we'll see where it goes. We think for this year, we can start up and then see if it continues to make sense and what it should look like moving forward, but this would be right now and allow us the opportunity to have a connection within a very important area.
Okay, so I know that we've had a lot of conversation about this over the last few months. It's an identified area of need. So I'm comfortable making a motion to establish a school committee liaison to the CPAC, filled by Morrow and Bethlen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion, questions, commentary?
I just want to say thank you. Like, I think it's great. I think,
Absolutely.
you know, it's hard to understate that more communication is what is needed. So I'm really thrilled that you guys stepped up, and I think that this can only lead to good things. So I just appreciate all the time you're putting in. I was able to sit in on one of these when you were out of town, and it was just great to see everyone in the same room, trying to brainstorm and work together. So I think it's great. So thank you.
Yeah, this doesn't preclude any of us being involved in those conversations. It just creates a channel for more of that. And I have to say, it's not. It was as much CPAC asking to make sure that we have these communications too. So we can't. I think thank you to all of us for finding ways to be able to collaborate and work together and always work to improve communication. So.
Perfect. All right. In that case, let's call for a vote. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Colleen, I have a bit of follow-up for you, please. If you or Stephen or whoever can update the website, can please update the school committee webpage to indicate that that's a new liaison role, and please list Morrow and Bethlen as the points of contact for that. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, absolutely. No, thank you for wanting to do the work. It's going to be really beneficial. All right, so we're tabling budget update. I'm realizing that I missed something yet again on my chair report, but I'll try to hold on to it for members' comments and questions at the end. So at this point in time, I'd like to open up the floor for citizens' comments, please.
Hi, guys. Jen Kranak. How are you?
Hi, good evening.
If any of you are comfortable with sharing, I'm just curious as to how many of you represent parents of children with special needs? Okay. And as a parent of a child with special needs, if you're comfortable answering, is the level of special needs that you're dealing with something that started early enough that your child was, went from early intervention and then went into the preschool? So, okay.
Sorry. My no was, no, it wasn't early intervention.
No, that's how I understood
Okay,
it.
okay.
Thank you. I personally am a parent of a special needs child. I had to look at my child, see that he wasn't developing typically. Pardon me, I'm probably going to cry. I had to go through early intervention. I had to go through preschool. I had to go through hours and hours of therapy in the home to try and understand what was wrong with my child. So please understand that when you're here talking about your CPAC liaison, it doesn't help as a parent to hear you talk about how you want to quote-unquote bring two sides together. We're supposed to be in an inclusive school district. What are the two sides? That's not inclusion. There's no representation for parents like me. There's no representation for students like my son. To hear that you think that you don't need to be at the CPAC meetings lets me know that there is no inclusion for parents. There is no inclusion for students because this is a systemic issue. It starts with the parents. We don't have representation. We need representation. We need more understanding. We don't need you to sit here and talk about the two sides and say that you don't need to be at the meetings. There are a lot of special needs students and a lot of parents that feel the same way that I do. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to listen to this. Thank you.
So Jen, first, I really appreciate your getting up because I know that it's hard to, yeah. First off, let me just say that I have worked with, although I myself do not have let me just say I'm deaf in one ear, but that has not caused functional limitation for the most part. And I have siblings who have a disability, not severe. They function in life. I'm not going to get into that further for sake of their own privacy. I have worked with kids and adults with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities since my early 20s. And I've worked with spinal cord injury and other physical disabilities for the last 18 years. And I now work with children. I now work not clinically, but I've worked on the service side and on kind of intervention side, developing like new interventions and trying to improve systems with children with medical complexity. So I hear I'm on a project where we are trying to work to improve family engagement, like to have and engagement isn't the right word because it's family partnership at all levels, and we're trying to create transformational partnership within health systems and so it's on the health system side, but it really helps understand a lot of the issues at play and trying to empower communities and people, and so their voices are heard. So I appreciate your voice. I don't say that to justify anything, and I think if you have concerns, we should definitely talk about whether or not we're at those meetings. That was a conversation that we had with the board of CPAC and the members where they suggested too, they didn't feel like we needed to be. So it wasn't us pushing that aside. So I just wanted to mention that, but I can understand, I respect where you're coming from, and there's a lot more to be done to help people feel like that their voices are being heard. And that's what we're really hoping for.
I just wanted to add, so thank you. I think that a lot of this stuff is really hard to share, and I think it's, with everything that's been going on, it feels like everything is so much magnified right now. I don't think anyone sees it as two sides. I think it's just poor word choice by volunteers. I don't think anyone up here feels that way, and we really just want to bridge gaps. If there are gaps we don't know about, we can't help, but once we know, I think there's legitimately people who want to help. So whether it's us 4 or 5 people or the next 4 or 5 people, that's what we have to keep in mind. So, as far as my personal situation, I may not have a child, but I have a niece who's 10, and she's so dangerous at times that she goes in and out of residential programs. So it's not my child, but it's my niece. And honestly, we're all just in this for kids of all kinds. So if there's a gap and people don't feel like we're hearing them, we want to hear from you. Any emails I get, I return. I offer to meet with parents all the time. It's something I enjoy. We may not live the lives everyone lives all the time, but we're Maynard. So so Jen, I just appreciate it. I know you've been coming to a lot of meetings, and sharing your story is really helpful. I think we just all would really benefit from not assuming things about each other, because I think no one knows where everyone's coming from, but let's try to learn more and work together. So I know I say it a lot, but I just really believe it. So thank you.
Hold on, just 1 minute. Jen, I just wanted to say thank you very much, and I'm sorry for my poor word choice. But we are a whole big family, and we are all trying to work together to make all of us, this whole school system work appropriately for every single child here. And I feel like that is certainly what both Bethlyn and I know that, the members of CPAC also agree with that. So that is our main goal. So, but thank you very much for telling us how you were feeling. Thank you.
Dave Krijger. I noted a couple different questions, so if you'll indulge me, I have a number of questions that I just jotted down as the discussions went on. On the first topic, the fines that were headed down to the school district. So one of the part of the fines is being fined because we, the school, did not enact on recommendations made. The consulting group that we pay for says it's not required. We're getting fined as if it is required. Is it required or was it not required? And if so, is the consulting group wrong? And are we passing the fines on to them that are being levied onto us? And if they're wrong, what confidence do we have that we're actually in compliance by actually working with them and following their advice? And if they're not wrong, we're clear. So that's the first question. So do we have any indication, are we in the wrong or are we not in the wrong?
So it's a step-by-step process as far as I can, as far as how I personally see it. And I think you're mirroring the questions that we are pursuing. So it's a no-brainer to file because, we shouldn't penalize the school district. Often these cases are won on appeal. I think we owe it to everyone to do that. And if we find out that we got bad advice, then I think the next step in a legal process from our standpoint, and we would have to talk about that as a group.
Yep.
So I want to be clear that I'm just giving my personal opinion, is yes, if someone gave us bad advice, that this is why I have such a thing with the potential for dog bites, right? I'm very nervous about lawsuits, and that's one job I enjoy when I do town work, trying to protect us from things. So you're speaking, we don't have answers yet because we want to see how this plays out, but those are exactly the things we're doing with our lawyer.
Yeah, I understand the not trying to get into a lawsuit, the cost of legal costs, et cetera. The town is not at fault here, right? The town is at fault for not following recommendations. But the town cannot be faulted and fined if the recommendations have been not required, right? So either is bad advice, we're in the clear,
Right.
and we pass the cost on, right, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the first one. On the topic of air purifiers, I know you're requesting quotes and et cetera. Is the intention just, as soon as the price comes in, to put in the purchase order? And I'm sure they're going to accept it because it's an order, like they'll take an order. Or is the intent, hey, there are more than 1 or 2 manufacturers around there, let's get a request for proposal, let's get a little bit of a price negotiation because we're all trying to cut costs. So can you help us understand that? Okay.
We have 3 different quotes as required, and this is the most responsive, and at this moment, I believe the lowest cost for the district. I try extremely hard to make sure that we save our money wherever we possibly can here.
Yeah.
So yes, that has been done, and as soon as we get a quote back from our initial conversation with this company, we've actually already purchased 6. of these air purifiers that we had put in, I think, 3 different rooms, 2 in each room. At the moment right now, the first 2 were ordered through one company, or actually the first 4 were ordered through one company. The second 2 I personally ordered myself and had delivered. And we also had been working with another company out in California and received results from that. So, yeah.
Okay,
That's been done.
great. And then last quick one, and I know I'll be quick. The lock situation.
Yes.
You referenced earlier was a surprise to you as well. Just for clarifying, I know you're trying to figure out what should be the lock speed, et cetera. Have we actually been in touch with and just walk through other schools in the area, what locks do they use, et cetera, and who either on this committee or in the administration, or not in the administration, is actually responsible for making sure we have these right locks? Who's running point? Because this seems to be taking long, personally, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, no, and I will echo that because it's what I've been working on during the day. So I'm extremely frustrated that we don't have an answer for tonight. I can't say it enough, but I can publicly say it. I'm extremely frustrated. I'm not the type of person who lists people to blame people, but what I will say is this has always fallen under the school safety committee.
Okay.
And it's an amazing committee, and I don't fault them for anything, really. But for whatever reason, through courses of events, we've discovered that they're not the right locks. And now we need to decide as a district, are there locks that we can put in place that we can afford? Or are we fine with our methods? And that's some information we need from the safety committee.
Yep.
It is, my frustration is in the lack of movement from one meeting to the next. So that is what I work on in the day. It is my joyous joy to do it. I'm sorry, I'm just really frustrated.
I can tell.
So it's not anyone's fault. It's not the safety committee's fault. What I find in some of these things that are coming to our attention is a lot of folks have a piece of it. And when I worked, my rule was always the more cooks in the kitchen at a managerial level.
Yep.
Like to your point, who owns this? So I actually sent an email today saying, who will be our point person? Because earlier this week, we decided Michelle is our point person on these air purifiers because I'm just as frustrated about those and why they're not here. So Michelle is amazing. I will say that publicly. She is so in charge of our finances, I don't worry at all. And she already has answers on the air purifiers. And they're not fast enough, and I agree, and I'm very frustrated. But we need another Michelle to handle this night lock business.
Right.
So I don't know who that is. I'm extremely frustrated that I can't tell you who it is. But I expect to find out tomorrow. So, and I'm happy to share that as soon as I have that information.
I 100% agree with what you're saying, by the way. Typically,
Yeah.
when there is no owner,
That's what happens.
everybody owns it, nobody owns it.
Right.
Right, and it doesn't move.
Yeah.
Look, I just want to
There are
give,
a lot of parallels in these situations,
Yep.
and I'm blaming me. Like, I don't blame other people. I'll blame myself, right? If part of this role is that we need to be that in the weeds, we will be. But I think we're going to get to a place where we don't need to be in the weeds on everything.
Yeah.
But
Right.
that's,
And there was some nuance to your question, and Natasha, I want to be respectful and not take
Oh,
too much,
no.
because I know you're standing. I'm in the industry. I teach in Lexington. I can tell you that in our district, we do not have supplemental locks. The night lock system would be considered a supplemental safety system. We have deadbolts that we can lock from the inside. And then we subscribe to the ALICE protocols, which are barricade, hunker down, resist, et cetera. So this was an initiative that, as Dawn was identifying, came out of our safety committee a couple of years ago. Our safety committee had all the requisite representatives. We had police, we had fire, we had building administrators, and this was the recommendation that came forward. And I don't know if it was a situation where the code changed, but doing an after-action report, we've identified and been in contact with our fire chief, and he's saying that it just doesn't meet fire code and building code. So now that we're aware of that, we're scrambling to try to remedy the situation because we've created an environment
Right.
where our community is accustomed to that additional level of security. It annoyed the ever-living hell out
Yeah.
of me, if I can speak frankly, because I don't like feeling like we are piddling away our resources, because that was a substantial investment. It was a substantial investment both in capital, but also in training our teachers in our community on how to use those systems. And I'm not okay with the idea that we had to take them away in what feels like the dark of the night. But ultimately, we do have people that have the authority to shut our building down if we're not in code. So we had to be reactive, which I never prefer to be, rather than proactive. So we are doing everything that we can. As Dawn was saying, this is one of her projects. And I'm copied on the emails, and I can tell you, to support Dawn's statement, we're trying to gain traction on it.
Great, thank you. Well, quick thank you for answering my questions. Also, just as a word of encouragement, you guys have had to field a lot of tough questions. Dr. Girardi's not here today, but he certainly has had to field a lot of tough questions, and rightfully so, right, over the last few months. Thanks for all your volunteer time on this. For a lot of you, this is completely volunteering time. Reach out to the people here. Reach out to the people all the time. I think you'll find sometimes that you're going to get critical comments. I think we also have to, on this side, there are no sides, but for the people on not sitting behind the chair, behind the tables there, we have to focus on mining for gold, i.e. what is going right versus focusing on what's going wrong, because a lot of things are going right.
Absolutely.
We just have to focus on together, how do we solve what's not going right? And I encourage you guys really to look at other schools that you feel are doing things absolutely right, by department, by groups. Learn from them and accelerate, for example. I'm very encouraged that you guys are getting some training on how to properly evaluate the superintendent of schools, which already tells me you guys are looking to evolve that process as well, so thank
When
you.
you're newly elected to the committee, there's a mandatory training that MASC puts on. But for me, that's 5.5 years in the rearview mirror now. And I'm not running for re-election, for those of you who haven't heard the word yet. It's time for me to move on to something else. But we've received feedback, and we're trying to be responsive to that.
Yep.
Members of the community feel like we need to do a better job evaluating our figurehead, and I agree. And we're taking the steps to make sure whoever's sitting in these seats going forward is doing the best thing.
Great, thank you.
Natasha, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no worries. I was hoping to see if there was any update on Phase 3 for the abatement. I understand that there was communication with staff already at Green Meadow, but I didn't see anything posted on the website, and I was hoping to see if there was some information that could be shared tonight. And then if you could explain for people who don't know exactly what Phase 3 is, because I understand, but maybe not everybody is clear on what Phase 3 means.
So Phase 3 is the abatement of the hallway, the pre-K and K hallway, which means the removal of all of the ceiling tiles and the ceiling grid. That has been quoted to us. That really what we're waiting on right now is we do have contracts. Yeah, we do have the contracts in hand. I personally have them. There is one section that is not filled out on them by the contractor. It's a little section that's number of days, but I'm not willing to sign the contract until they put that number of days down, because I'm trying to be as crossing our T's and dotting our I's as much as possible. But that work has been slated for April vacation. I'm really just waiting for them to give me back the number of days, and then I will be signing those contracts and sending them out to them.
By slated, do you mean to start and finish during April vacation completely, or, okay.
I believe it's, and forgive me, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I believe it will be 2 weeks worth of work. They're going to do during the day on April vacation week, and then after that, they will wait for Excel and everyone to leave the building, and they will be working the second, actually, it might be, they're working the first week at night, after everybody has left the building, as they have done at some of the cleaning process, and then during April vacation, because I believe they said they needed the lights, the daylight, because there will be power, no power and stuff, once they rip down all of that, to, do the finish work on that, removing and the final inspections for the cleaning.
Okay.
And then the replacement of the ceiling, I know I'm going past
No,
Phase 3. So
No, I think more information is better, so please, I won't stop you.
the replacement of the ceiling tiles and the ceiling grid would be after that, and that is planned at this point to be done during the summer, so that wing will be fully open for September.
And so is that being called like Phase 4, possibly, or?
That would be done, at this moment, we're thinking that would be able to be done by our own.
Internally?
Internally, to save us some money.
And maybe after roof repairs?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I don't know
Yes.
May.
100,000 for roof repairs, so we can't really make a determination on.
When and how.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I can tell you that
That's
the
the-
replacement of the grid in the ceiling tiles is slated for the summertime.
Okay.
So those rooms should be completely done and ready for September.
And Natasha, on the,
And that's tentative.
Yeah, no, thank you, I
Sorry, Michelle.
appreciate it. Well,
and
Yeah,
on the
thank
question
you.
of roof repairs, it's a slightly different timeline. Michelle identified that we're going
Right.
to the town for capital at town meeting in May. I can tell you that I was copied on a series of emails today confirming that is going into the warrant article draft that will be voted on by the selectmen on Tuesday night.
Okay, and I just want to clear, because I know I've gotten questions, and my understanding from Aaron was that $100,000 ask, is it still 100,000?
As recently as today, yes.
Okay, that is inclusive of Green Meadow, but other facilities, it's not only for Green Meadow, right?
Defer to Michelle.
Okay,
So for the, I'm also on the capital planning
Yes,
committee for
yes.
the town. And the original, before this all happened, we actually had already
crafted that.
for that 100,000, and it was for Green Meadow as well as other buildings in town that needed repair.
Okay,
But I will say too, that there also has been an ongoing roof repair line at the town that we have been using for all of our previous repairs, too, and that is allocated just for Green Meadow. I think it was Green Meadow and Fowler, if I remember correctly, but again, you can speak with the town about that, but we have used those funds for it previously.
okay.
So this was an additional 100,000 that we were dedicating to the town buildings and Green Meadow, because we were looking at if we need additional repair.
Okay, thank you for that update. I also wanted to thank you, Bethlyn and Morrow, for your efforts in working with CPAC. I know it was begun under less than ideal circumstances, but I think that stemmed from, for lack of a better word, neglect, possibly, in getting communication and collaborating. And I am hopeful for positive outcomes for this, as the community has expressed. I think the inclusive mindset is something that we need to be more mindful of in our words, and I know there's no intent of anything other than that, but it does resonate more with some families that when they come from a place where they feel like their child has not been included in various events and so forth. So I would, ask that, from a mindset of top-down, that we each take ownership and independent of what our words are and how we are projecting that, because I think that that image will be carried out better in the culture within the schools if we start, being mindful of that ourselves. So, thank you for that.
Looking at the FAR table, as soon as we have those plans finalized, can we get those up online for people to access, please?
For superintendent, that could be, like, can we then push out just so people know that that's there, so they know to go? Once we have dates, once we have contract done and we have dates set, then that gets pushed out on our all our different communication outlets available to us.
Dawn, I was just wondering, did you guys have a total yet of what this is going to cost?
I have an almost finalized total. The latest update as of today is just north of $740,000.
And is that with the 180 from,
So that is not subtracting out the insurance.
okay, so take out
So
180.
it's 740 minus 180.
Okay, so that's how much we're going to have to ask now to move over from the free cash.
It's far more than there's available to move over. So
All right.
it will be further discussions on where to find the money, absolutely. That's,
I mean, there is money there, but I just wanted, before the warrant's read, you guys are going to meet the 25th, so then we'll know they can write the warrant for more if we need to.
You did announce that, right? Brian, thank you for calling that to our attention. Everybody, thank you. We are meeting with FinCom on the 25th, and there is some activity underway to try and invite the BOS to also join us, but we're not
Right.
sure if that's going to happen yet, because having all three boards in the same room increases the likelihood that the things that we need to happen will happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's more efficient.
Yeah.
So,
All right, cool, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Well, we have a meeting that Thursday night.
I just want to make sure. So oh, yeah.
you guys also.
Okay, got it. Sorry. Just want to make sure everyone knows all the information.
Hi, Ann Alexopoulos. Dawn, I want to thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I had a good ear in the back.
So I want to thank you for responding to my email I emailed you regarding the air purifiers. I know a couple meetings back, I can't remember when, they talked about there might be a donation. What kind of happened with that?
That's part of what we looked into this week, and when you
That
hear
was
the
also
number.
part of the delay in the process,
Okay.
to be
Yeah, so
perfectly
we actually,
honest.
in all honesty, we really did think there was a hotline on these donations. It's not as much as we need, so it might be that they kick in one or two, but we need far more units than that. So
Right.
that's sort of why we assigned and asked Michelle to be the new point person, because you can't wait all day for donations to come in, even when the number is $740,000. We are very responsive to the need for these. We understand the concern. And that's why now even though it's still taking a while, and I don't disagree, I now feel that we have a plan and it's moving forward. We have a point person, but it's frustrating. Yeah, I think we all were hoping we would get a $30,000, $40,000 donation. So I think it's fiscally sound to pursue that, but you only have a short window when everyone agrees we need these installed. So I don't know if that's clear, but.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much. And I also had a question about all the materials. So our kindergarten and our preschool lost a lot of materials, right? And the town has come together because, one of Maynard's strengths, everything has strengths and weaknesses, and one of Maynard's strengths is community, as we all understand and know. One, the community can only do so much, right? We all know that because we're part of the community. So what is the school doing? Because I'm sure that no matter how many teacher fund me pages, I don't even know what those are called, but the kindergarten teachers put up the fund me pages, and then the community with the Amazon wish lists. There's still things that my daughter in first grade had last year, and now my other daughter's coming in. And we're at a point in our district is our kids comparing our district, and I know we can't compare, but comparing Maynard to Stowe, Acton, Sudbury, all the surrounding towns around us, we're not meeting benchmarks as, we're not meeting benchmarks, if I'm wrong, but we're not meeting the benchmarks the same way, right? Like, we're a little lower.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
I don't know, I
I'm
was
just curious
reading
what you're
online,
looking at.
the benchmarks for the, MCAS.
Senator-
I know it's a bigger issue, but now we're taking away a lot of these materials
I
that
see
the
where you're going.
teachers are used to using. So is there anything that we're doing to supplementing so they have all these things, so they're able to use all these things they're used to using? Because I know in the middle of the school year, it could be hard to adjust your teaching. And now are these kindergarten kids from Jen, I guess this is more to you. Are these kindergarten kids now at a disadvantage? Because in the middle of the year, kind of everything has been changed for them. And are they going to have to catch up next year in first grade?
So obviously, any sort of turbulence within a child's education can have a negative or positive impact. And systematically, what we do is we will look at trends. We will continue to collect the DRA data and those sorts of things, and our teachers will be looking to determine if we do have gaps and where we need to fill them. Sorry. At this point, I have not heard of those pieces. Obviously, it's in short order, and I'd have to take a look at our assessment calendar to determine when those assessments are coming up next. And if we were to see, for example, a significant either decrease or not as much of an increase across the board in kindergarten in those assessments that we were expecting, we would ask questions and figure out what we could do. I don't anticipate that happening. One of the things that we work very hard to do is to replace the primary resources that the teams are using. There are purchase orders being submitted over the last several weeks to replace the foundations kits and many other materials. And so those are in process and are being ordered. Similarly to the air purifiers, because we understand the community can only bear so much, not only in donations, but also in terms of expenses. We are seeking donations from corporations to be able to offset costs, but that is not delaying, the foundations, which is a total of $12,000 or somewhere north of that. We purchased that and then asked the company, hey, could you help us out?
Right, yeah.
So we weren't delaying that piece of it. So I don't anticipate that there will be a deficit in terms of student learning as a result of this. We, of course, will watch for that and make sure that, our first grade team is able to accommodate any standards or any pieces that these students are missing.
And I remember in my daughter's kindergarten year, my Katie, she was my daughter's kindergarten teacher, had this file, and I'm assuming they were in the classroom. So those are all the DRA levels. Where, are they gone now?
Yes, but we do have tracking systems so that we can follow that data. So we don't have the actual booklets, but we do have the scores of the students so that we can see how they're doing in terms of.
Okay, so you have the scores from the beginning of September and, in the computer or something?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Was your question about supplies more, because I'm wondering, so if we're thinking the same thing, one of my concerns, so we've got to get through the next 60 or so days and maximize what we can. But one of my concerns going forward, and I'm wondering if this is what you're referring to, is sort of building those classrooms back up to what they were at.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and we can talk about this, but at the next meeting, we should be forming the Green Meadow Committee, sort of the future committee.
That was the thing I forgot to
Well,
mention.
and we've been kind of also, and I assume we're all individually thinking about this, but in my mind, I want to, what are we going to be asking this committee to do other, aside from air quality and your thoughts on the building in the future? Are there some, some ways that maybe some members of the committee could also sort of gauge where we're at on rebuilding the classrooms? Because I just think that that's sort of something we haven't covered yet. Everything right now has been just to get through the end of the year, get the repairs done, salvage what we can. But I have concerns, not that we won't do it, but we really need to address how are we going to help build those classrooms back up over time?
Right.
And what that's going to look like financially and what that's going to look like in terms of trade-offs. But I would love some outside voices to sort of be talking with the teachers and then we all talk. So that's sort of my brainstorming. But we can, I think we've been doing a great job sort of brainstorming as a community throughout all this.
And I had one last question, and that was, I know over the last, I don't know if the last couple weeks, the community heard that a couple teachers from Green Meadow or therapists have left or are planning to leave. I think it was the music teacher and an SLP. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I was just wondering what was the process on hiring the music teacher? Where I saw one email and then I kind of haven't seen an update on that.
I mean, my understanding is that we currently have a long-term sub person.
I have an update too. I have an update. I had a school council meeting yesterday, so I can update to that a little bit.
This individual, while he is currently functioning as a long-term sub, is seeking his licensure, at which point he will be able to be hired as a teacher.
Okay,
So that's the update that I have. The speech and language pathologist, I believe, is in process.
okay. Thank you.
Starting in a couple weeks, I believe.
Oh, she's starting.
Yeah, March 22nd. March 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
And hi again. And just to piggyback, Mary, we had just had a school council meeting at Green Meadow yesterday, so she was able to share a video of, I think, the first day of the sub, and the kids were pretty energized there, so I don't think they feel totally any interruption. They were banging on drums and introducing themselves. I mean, the space is difficult, but clearly that's not the norm. But I wanted to also mention through the meeting yesterday, there's some things that came up. One of them, talking about losses and what we need to recoup. Obviously, the level library is a big issue. and, conversations and what the conversations are about that. I think that are yet to be determined, it sounds like. Something else that was asked, which no one at the meeting could really know, was the technology for the smart boards and the bright links that were in the class. Were those salvageable? They were, because we weren't sure at the time if they were. So that's okay. That's good. The other issue that got brought up, or concern, or in conversations that were happening, were about the open house that is planned for April, and, understanding the dynamics of how Green Meadow can still facilitate an open house with 1/3 of the building not available. And so, it was the recommendation that it not be canceled. And I just want to make sure that, because I think the community has felt a lot of cancellations already, but how we can best frame and support the school to ensure that they are able to execute it safely, and that the experience by the community is still one that has positive takeaways.
Do you know the date of the scheduled open house?
I think it was April 10th. I have it written. Is it April 10th?
I can find out later.
Yeah, I think it was,
I'm going to be at Green Meadow in the morning.
okay.
Speak with Mrs. Dankner and get some updates, and so that's just something I'm trying.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share, because it was something that we talked locally, but I think getting more support beyond just our little group was probably trying to look for help here, to make sure that it's a successful thing, that it's not something that falls to the chopping block, but also being mindful of how it can be successful with understanding the limitations of space and all those that comes with it, so. I think we all do, but I think it was just thinking, knowing that, people come with strollers, and you're not going to be able to walk around like in past, and just that, right. Yeah, and I think that was the takeaway, is we can definitely do it, but I just want, I think they just need some support there. So, thank you very much. Oh, great.
It's not an update, it's just understanding the process. We are getting the inventory of what was in the level library, seeking resources from outside organizations to be able to provide us with some financial relief in that capacity. And we are also using this as an opportunity to really examine what we use and why we use it, so that we can move forward. As Vice Chair Capella mentioned, we are certainly, cognizant of getting through the rest of the year, and just making sure that we have the resources we need to do that. But in terms of replacement of our resources moving forward, full scale, and moving forward, this is something that needs to be done strategically in line with our curriculum development work that needs to be done anyway. And so we are using that as an opportunity to really explore ways that we can advance our teaching with our students with those resources. So we will be replacing that resource, but we'll be doing it in a way that makes sense and moving forward.
No, that's good to hear, because I know there, had some conversations about looking at the school or the district school improvement plans, and how we can align like this as a possible reset opportunity to reassess what we have done. Maybe is not always the best practice of what we should be doing. So it's great to hear that is the vision of how that can happen. Appreciate it.
And part of that too, in terms of replacement of resources, we're not just replacing everything.
Like A for A, B for B,
This
yeah.
was there, we get the same thing.
Mhm.
So we're replacing what we need to get through the remainder of this year, and then trying to be thoughtful and strategic about where we spend our dollars and how we do that.
Okay.
Jen and I met for coffee this morning and talked about this exact topic, so now I feel like maybe you were at the table next to us. So this is.
I was there. No,
I'm
I did see you
wondering-
walking, I want to say, so not that I was spying, but I was doing drop off, and I did see you walking around Thompson Street, so
Stalker.
I am totally. Now you know.
Motors down to the greenhouse this morning.
I do wonder if I think this is going to be some of the things that as things start to stabilize a little more in Green Meadow, relatively speaking, and being able to have another parent forum at some point, like some place where they can have a little more like informal, like sit down, and if people have questions, being able to give them updates on this is kind of how we're moving forward with this is how we're moving forward with this, particularly for Green Meadow parents to have a sense of where things are at.
And it could be that maybe with the Green Meadow committee that gets formed, that would be, I don't know how soon that will happen,
We're
but,
hoping to form the committee at the next meeting.
okay.
We've all sort of been,
Yeah, I mean, we were going to acknowledge the delay. I was planning to acknowledge it during my chairperson's report, and I'm sorry for talking over you, Don, but we were still having interested community members adding their name to the list
That's
as
great.
late as Monday. So I think we've been really hesitant to sort of close it off because we want everybody who has the desire to be involved. But we have acknowledged as a group that we need to get that running. And obviously with a volunteer list that is now numbering in the mid to upper 20s, we have a lot of options in the directions that we can go and the tasks that that group can take on. But first we have to formally organize it. And as Dawn was saying, next meeting.
And I definitely, I know we've talked a lot about the idea of how do we improve and going forward. I just don't want to lose sight of also reflecting back on how we got here.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right, thank you.
Sure thing. Hello again, Brian.
Hello. Last meeting, the teachers presented an incompetence of Bob. I was wondering if the board can tell us their feelings on it. You weren't here, Justin, so I don't know if you...
Yeah, no, I've been in the loop. So being in the field of education, I'm well aware of what a no confidence vote looks like, and more importantly, the significance of our professional unions taking that step. Taking a step back from the action itself, I think it's clear to say that the trust and the communication between our administration and our professional staff is broken. I've reflected long and hard on how we proceed forward from this. I've been a part of a lot of quiet conversations with other members of the board, also with our superintendent. And we're trying to figure out what our best path forward is out of this. Because I want more than anything for our teachers to want to come to work in an environment that they feel valued, and they feel respected, and they feel supported. And it's pretty clear right now that there are significant concerns in those categories that I just identified. Also, I'm also taking the long view in the fact that I'm acknowledging that we have a lot of work that needs to be done in the short term before we start to tackle a larger question such as the one that you just posed. It's not that I'm disregarding it. I'm merely trying to compartmentalize because, again, I want safe schools. I want welcoming schools. I want our students, our children to learn in the way that they deserve. And right now, that has required me to pour a lot of my time, my effort, and my mental energy into just resolving the situation that we find ourselves in. I think there are a lot of hard questions that need to be asked. And I think there are a lot of answers that are going to come forward that are going to be very uncomfortable for people. And I would really like to be part of a process that breaks that down and, to use Natasha's viewpoint, like identifies how we move forward from this. And the question of our educational leadership is absolutely a question that this board needs to consider going forward.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak on the topic, or?
I guess the only thing I essentially would just echo what Justin's saying. Things that I had mentioned as potential action steps for next time around. We've been probing the best way to make those things happen via email and trying to see like how we set up those structures. So just to be aware that we're trying to get things moving to figure out where these things happen. And so it's just not, it's just figuring out when and how. And I think the thing that I was most left with from last time was just the somber, sad consideration of the community and just the way it's still just thinking about it. It's just, no one wants to have to get to that point, and I'm sorry that we're here, and I think that everyone cares deeply to move us forward and to figure out what we need to and to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So I guess within all that, we're going to hold ourselves to a line of integrity in the process and attention that hopefully at some point, generally school committees is meant to have a larger oversight view and not be quite so in all of the micro weeds, but here we are because that's what we need to do.
We found that we have.
Yeah, yeah. So in any case, that's it.
So I just wanted to comment, it's really interesting. So I spoke to the Beacon Villager, February 25th, which was before any votes and before some of the meetings we've had. And I kind of want to say this, but I'm just not sure how people interpret it. But I would just say that, just know that opinions can evolve. You know, how I felt on February 25th, and now as I consider myself a full-time employee of the school system, and I don't say that for pity, I do enjoy working here. Unpaid, I'm not now paid, I just don't want, I'm misspeaking now, whatever. My point is, we can do a lot better in a lot of things, and I'm committed to that. I own all my mistakes. You know, I don't personally know enough about unions and administrations. You know, I don't want to step into that, but what I want to step into is how I can help and how I can work with my colleagues, the administration, and everyone here. Like, this is actually really good that people keep coming, you know, and we're never going to get past this if we don't. So all I can say is I sent the Beacon a statement on the 25th. Parts of it were printed. It has taught me that I will probably not do that again in the future, because it's really interesting when people pull a little bit here, and I'm sorry to say that out loud. I'm not being very clear, but my point is my opinions evolve, like I think all of ours do, and I just promise to keep working hard, so.
I think this whole process has been a really big learning process for all of us, and, you know, considering I've only been on this committee since July, and there was, you know, pretty much the first, you know, couple of years is a big learning curve anyway. So I feel like, you know, our biggest issue was communication and getting, you know, the information out and making sure that the information that we got out was correct. And I feel like we still have a lot of work to do on that. And we all are really trying hard to make sure that is happening. And, you know, we really, we do all really value everybody coming up and expressing their opinions and voicing their concerns. It's helpful to hear all the different sides so that we can really have a more informed view of the whole community. So I think that's very helpful. And, you know, we are, you know, certainly we're working really hard on this issue right now, but yes, we definitely have much more, like what Justin was saying. We have a lot more with what we need to do and kind of our path forward. We have a lot more work to do, but it's good to have the input and you know, what everybody feels like they want to see this school, our whole school community, what that looks like, because we can't, you know, we're representatives of everybody here. So, thank you.
No problem. Michelle, I have a question. You said you're on a committee. What committee did you say you're on? The planning committee? The capital? I heard capital. I couldn't really hear because I was back there.
Yeah, capital planning committee. It's actually a town committee. I know that the town manager is, he actually has done something up today about forming a new version of it.
Okay.
I don't exactly know the specifics on it, but I was, yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, I was just confused because, like, yeah, you just said at the FinCom, he didn't have one. So that's why when you said it, I was like, I'm confused now. You know, because, yeah, he was like, I don't have it. He doesn't. Greg said that he didn't have a subcommittee for capital planning yet, that he was looking to do it again, that they disbanded.
Oh, you know, yeah, so he's just making a slight distinction that probably doesn't make sense. Briefly, over 6 years, capital planning used to be all citizens. Then it was all town employees currently. Yeah. And now I think Greg wants some, I don't know exactly, I don't want to speak for Greg, but maybe a mix. So I think when he calls it a subcommittee versus Michelle saying it's a town committee, it's
Yeah, no, I
a
know,
subtle
he
difference.
just, I'm finding it's like, you know, a little, wishy-washy, because like he says it, and then I don't know, like if he's saying like he has a committee, and then he's looking to change it up and put citizens on it, because when they asked him, he was like, we don't really have one, but we have one, but so I was like,
So I think what it was is that we were actually formed by Andrew Scribner.
Yep.
And it was, I think I was on it when maybe the second year I came here, and also this past year. But yes, Greg has made, he wanted to reestablish it
okay.
from what I know of
Okay.
in our conversations.
All right, thank you.
Hello, Pam Reiniger. Just a question in regards to the superintendent's position. How long was the contract that we gave him, and where are we within that contract?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can.
So his contract is available in the office if you walk in and you request a copy of it. I'm going to do my best to work off the top of my head, but Dr. Girardi is on what we consider a rolling contract, in that under provisions of the contract, if he meets certain performance benchmarks in his evaluation, we have the option to allow the contract to roll over on a year-to-year basis. There's also a provision in the contract that if he doesn't meet certain provisions, we have the option by January 15th of every year notifying him that that additional rollover clause is not going to trigger that particular year. So as far as the duration of the contract, I don't want to misspeak. All I'm going to ask is, if you're curious, just walk down to the office and ask for a copy of it. It's either 3 years or 4. I don't remember precisely, and I don't want to give you bad information.
We can absolutely bring it to the next meeting, though.
Okay. Just a question, because we did know a lot of this information. Did we happen to put him on notice in January?
No.
Thank you.
And so I'm hearing the noise from the room. As chair of this committee, part of that falls on me. However, I will tell you that in the midst of everything that we were dealing with, it was an oversight on my part.
The only thing I will say to that is we seem to have to let our teachers know months ahead of time that they may or may not have a job opportunity come the fall.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why we wouldn't have put our superintendent on notice based on the performance that we had in front of us.
I agree with you, and that's why I'm acknowledging I bear part of that responsibility for that oversight.
Hi, I have a question for somebody who couldn't be here tonight, and it's about the English Learners Committee. Do you know of this? Who's on it?
What is it?
English Learners Committee?
English Learners Committee?
Yeah, it's on the website. It has met at least twice.
John, I'm sorry. I just want to tell you, I've been away for 3 nights, so I promised my son that I would get home 20 minutes ago.
Oh.
So I really apologize that I need to head home, but I do. So yeah. So it's not anything you're saying or anyone else, but I do need to get going.
All right, go home to your family. You're not storming out.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I just couldn't hear
So
the-
there's an ELL committee. When was it formed? Who is on it?
Jen, do you have that now, or do you want to get it for us for next time?
This is a committee that has been meeting for at least 2 or 3 years. I don't have the names of all of the representatives of the committee. Dominican is on it, Karen Murphy. We have a community member who I'm blanking on the name, Carol Gahan, Charles Cabron, Rita Murphy, and I'm probably blanking on.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you don't have it all off the top of your head, so I would just have that person contact Jen directly. I'm sure she can get
All
right
right.
back to them.
Any EL parents on that committee, as far as you know?
We have reached out multiple times. We continue to do so annually as we're required to do, and we continue to seek people to do so. We do have a community member this year. I don't know off the top of my head if we're able to sustain a parent volunteer at this point.
Thanks.
Hello, back. I have a question that is piggybacking off of what was asked about contracts. And so I know a lot of administrator contracts have clauses built in similarly to what you mentioned, where they need to be notified by particular date in January.
Yes.
It's not unique to Dr. Girardi. And as a community member, and I'm sure teachers will probably feel this way, how unfair that such language is, considering that by January, we don't know the budget needs in many cases, and so that those folks who have the luxury of job security are then automatically possibly eliminated from any consideration of budgetary discretion that may later come about. So it's really poor optics, I think, for a community that is in financial straits to automatically give job security to certain folks in leadership and not have that trickle down, not be able to have that trickle down to teachers and paras until April or whenever the budget is later found out. So I just wanted to share that.
Sure, and I agree. The optics aren't great. I would suggest anybody who sits in this seat in the future, that's something that absolutely needs to be addressed. Like, as we're going through the steps of all of these processes that we find ourselves in simultaneously, we are learning an awful lot about this. And I think every person that sits at this table, every person that cashes a paycheck in a leadership role in this community is learning all of the things that we could do better or we could do differently. And that's why when Ms. Reiniger stood up and asked that question, I will accept full responsibility for that, my part in that process.
And it's not like, I mean, this is not unique just to this year, so I don't want to put, on you and what you did. I think it's just looking back at past practice, right? And how contracts have been created historically. And I did, review personally the contracts, and I'm not going to go into person by person, but I've done it for current ones, prior years, and I can tell you that it was pretty hard to, when you think about fairness, I'm a teacher, and I don't know January 15th if I'm going to have my job next year. To know that many folks in leadership do have that security known automatically. So I just want to, again, as we think about how we can create better relationships in the community and with the staff, that probably is something that needs to be revisited going forward with contracts and how they're rewritten.
Absolutely, and our board will be reconstituting in July, and that's a great opportunity for the new voices that will be sitting at this table to consider the process.
I plan on doing that. Thank you.
Hi there. Just to piggyback off of the whole contract talk, how is it decided if someone's contract is not slated to be renewed until, say, July, for example, that it's renewed in January ahead of that contract date? For example, Ms. Gahan's was not slated to be renewed until July, and it's been renewed according to the contracts that I got from the administrative office in January. So
I don't have that, anything.
And we don't approve or sign off on those contracts.
okay,
for
so
anybody other
you're
than
not a part
Dr.
of that at
Gerard, no.
all? Okay, so they can just be renewed 6 months early without anybody's say?
Well, I mean, it's under the purview of the superintendent, and if that's feedback that we're receiving, then we can absolutely consider that as we go into the evaluation cycle for the individual in question. And we started working really hard last year on gathering that feedback so that we can incorporate it more thoroughly.
It was renewed this January?
Yeah, but what I'm speaking to is when we're going into the process of the next evaluation for the superintendent, who would have been the person that renewed that contract, that sort of feedback is something that we could consider as...
Going forward
Yes.
versus back. Okay, thank you.
Sure thing.
Hi again. So quick follow-up question on what falls in the responsibilities of the superintendent. Are those actually set by the committee at a town level, i.e. we as a school committee here can say the superintendent is allowed to make recommendations on renewal, hiring, but any renewal or hiring or disciplining or et cetera, has to have some kind of oversight by the committee, approval, including as to documentation and performance reviews,
Dave, to be honest, I don't know. A lot of leadership responsibilities, requirements, and purviews are established by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and under the licensure. Jen, I see you grabbing the mic. If you have anything you want to chime in on, please do. But I don't know, but I can promise to follow up on any specific questions that you might have and try to get you an answer.
Education reform sets very clear standards for school committee and superintendent. The school committee is in charge of hiring and evaluating the superintendent and overseeing the budget process. The superintendent is the chief operating officer of the district, is in charge by law of all of those other components. There are divisions between, and it would therefore be in charge of hiring of all subordinates beneath him or herself.
Okay, thanks.
Back again, I just want to piggyback off of that recent topic. So my understanding of Chapter 71 of the reg states that the school committee is supposed to be appointing the superintendent, assistant superintendent, the director of special ed, the business manager, and certain functions where that they are recommended the hiring by the superintendent, but there's supposed to be some collaborative effort that involves the school committee.
So you're speaking to initial hiring, but you're not speaking to renewal of contract.
Appointments.
Initial appointments, right?
Right, because I know it's been communicated that they have not played a part in, because it's considered a hiring. But I just want to clarify that there is a misunderstanding, I believe,
Okay, so,
that there's no
yeah, so,
involvement. Yes, thank you.
So under, if I'm remembering what you're mentioning, okay, it does say that, but under that, it has a DESI recommendation.
Yes.
Which basically says that the school committee has can hire the superintendent, and that the superintendent then hires everybody else under him.
So, hold on a second, because I will pull it up, because I actually just referenced it today with communicating with someone. The recommendation was that the superintendent hires, but that they work and consult with the school committee to keep in the level of what the intent of the law is. The law specifically says that it's the school committee has the governance to do it, but that obviously took away the hiring, oversight, or power of the superintendent, and that wasn't the breadth of the law. So they had recommendations in 1995 by the commissioner that said that to be compliant with the law, that the superintendent was to work with the school committee so the school committee would vote on it. So,
yeah. Okay.
yes.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Okay, moving on. Oh. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jennifer O'Leary. So we talked a lot about contracts and where they're at, and we have some wonderful town attorneys that are referenced frequently. And have we thought about how we're going to talk to town attorneys to get us out of contracts that maybe we don't want to be in? Okay. Okay.
Okay, moving on. Members' comments and questions. Dawn, Mauro?
Yeah, I don't have anything.
We did mention the Green Meadow Future Committee, which was the one thing that I omitted during my report. All right, well, in that case, hearing no further members' comments or questions, motion to adjourn. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.